Yeah, you're doing several seminars here at the show. Tell us about your seminar schedule.
I am doing a lower river, what is it, trout and techniques in trout fishing from a boat, like how to successfully target trout. I am a guide on the Niagara River. I fish upper Niagara and the lower Niagara, but my seminars are all in the lower Niagara. How to successfully target steelhead, lake trout, and brown trout.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I was doing the seminar, I was explaining to people how I rig my rods, from how I tie my egg sacs, how I cure my eggs, how I keep them natural, I dye them, what types of different hard gear I use, which is Yakima bait, bag lips I use a lot of the times. I make slinky weights, everything from boat control to weather, times of the year.
So you're probably pretty busy right now.
I am busy right now. Unfortunately, we have big winds today, so it kind of put me out of the game for about a week.
Okay.
But yeah, I do have a very busy schedule. The fishing's phenomenal. It is unreal.
Have you guys had a good winter? I mean, overall, as far as fishing
goes?
goes?
Good winter this year. Yeah, it actually wasn't bad. Last year we had a big blizzard. This year we didn't. So the water had stayed.
We're gonna drop this on
yeah,
you
go ahead.
too.
Sorry about that.
No, that's
No,
not
that's
you
good.
What were we saying? So the river's been really fishable. It was green for about the last 2 to 3 weeks. It's that pea soup Lake Erie green. The water's very warm right now. Usually it's 32 degrees. It's making skim marks. Right now it's 38 degrees. Steelhead are still very active. They're hitting like they are in the fall. They hit the fish, they hit the bait, they come right up to the surface.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so they're good and squirrely still.
Well, tell me a little bit about fishing the lower Niagara. I know it's something you do throughout the year. What is that like? What are the seasons like as the year progresses?
So the Niagara River fishing we'll start with salmon. So the fishing in the lower river starts producing around late September, early October, and it'll run all the way through until about, I would say, the first week of April. And then once you're about the second week of that, you're out in the lake trolling for spring kings, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
As the salmon run in the river, they're obviously producing the spawn. Following that is the lake trout, then the brown trout, and the steelhead come in last. Pretty much nature takes its place. That's how it goes in order. They're all in there eating each other's eggs for competition. Right now we are in the prime steelhead month. February, it is unreal right now. It's double-digit numbers every day. It's a great time.
Tell me about, you said you're using egg sacs, but what is the fishing like? What's if somebody's going to go fishing with you? Describe to me what that day is going to be like. What are they going to be doing?
So what I ask people when they first get to the dock, I say, what do you guys want to target mainly? Do you guys want to target steelhead, brown trout, or lake trout? Because you can catch all three right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just narrow it down to steelhead because we were talking about the steelhead topic. So I would run up into Devil's Hole. I would start from the farthest up the river and work my way down to the longest part of the river, which is the Niagara Bar. I would start up there. We would go up into the drift. I would point my boat into the current, drop my bow mount down, slow my speeds up and down, and I use a spinning rod, 7-foot medium action, 7-foot lead, size 12 blackbird hook with a ounce and 3/4 weight. And then I would put on a pink egg sac or peach egg sac, depending on water clarity. It also depends on that. I would have my clients drop it down to the bottom, and they just tick every once in a while. They want that single dish drag on the bottom. Straight up and down, though, you want your presentation as key as possible. You don't want your lines slacking left or right, in front of you, behind you. You want it straight up and down. And like I said, right now the water's so warm that when the fish hit, they're so aggressive. Usually this time of the year, we have a soft bite. You just slowly lift the rod up, and you'll see the rod start to bend. But now they're just hammering it. Before they even know it's a fish, they think it's a snag, it's a fish.
Yeah.
That's a cool place. I fished the Devil's Hole once where it's pretty wild. So you go running up the river, right? And you go through the power and like you go down and up. It's like this giant whirlpool. It's like it's pretty unique.
Yeah,
I mean,
you definitely gotta know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Devil's Hole. I don't recommend it to people that don't go. Let's go with somebody who has experience. Don't have to be a guide, as long as you know how to navigate the waters, read the waters. It's not like you're gonna hit rocks. You just gotta watch. The water's constantly changing. Water levels going up and down. Whirlpools are opening up constantly. But once you go up into the drift, it's pretty.
Yeah, the whirlpools are pretty wild.
They're bigger than this table.
Yeah, they're huge. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yep.
So.
Tell me about. Sounds like if you're really on that vertical jig game, boat control has got to be just the number one thing there.
Boat control is my job.
Yeah.
So I try to watch all my clients on a boat. Watch if I have 3 or 4 guys, 1 guy, 2 guy. My job is to consistently watch his main line when the sinker's in there. And I got to know if it's going behind the boat, I slow the boat down, I turn the motor off, let the boat catch up. It starts picking up above, I hit it again.
Mm-hmm.
You want to try to keep your boat slower than the current's going. Keep your drift as long as possible. So your minnow or your egg, your bait is floating up into different water columns. You may be dropping your line down 20 feet, but I put floats in my egg sacs. Sometimes they're only 10 feet down.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends. I'm using a 7-8 foot lead some days.
What kind of boat setup do you have?
I have it. I have a ZV-21 Nitro.
Okay, so a multi-species
I have a
style boat.
multi-species
Yeah.
DP
Okay.
boat. I used to have a lot of OB, but I switched to fiberglass.
Okay. Okay.
Just a standard bow mount, all
Yeah.
power on it.
Well, I mean, I think that's the cool thing about this area is like it's a multi-species type fishery where like
Yes.
the boats that I own, you own, Chris owns.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the kind of boats that you guys are fishing out of. So it's
It's-
well suited to a lot of different
This is
people.
what's nice about living in Western New York. I can go 20 minutes to Lake Ontario, catch salmon. I can go 20 minutes to Lake Erie, catch walleye and smallmouth bass. And then like this time of the year, both lakes, not really much going on. You got
Big North River.
There's always a fishery within a 20 to 30 mile radius. Somewhere around here, you can always go after fish. It's hard to go.
Yeah, we were talking to Captain Lance Valentine last night. We were talking about how many times he's touching the buttons to keep that motor going. What do you think? How many times per minute are you tapping the buttons?
I got like a picture memory in my head. I don't even look at it. I just
Yeah.
feeling and touching. If you had to guess in a day, probably 300-400 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, constantly on and off, on and off. Yeah.
And that's just in order to get the bite. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, you do. Some days are different than other days. I mean, depending on what baits you use, if we're pulling quick fish or mag lips, I should say, we'll turn the boat on a complete 90-degree angle, kick the motor towards the actual main motor facing towards the wind, cast the lure out, let it sink to the bottom, and let the boat pull and do all the work. You just leave your rod down, and all of a sudden, it'll just hit it. The lure's digging into the bottom.
So you're not really trolling per se. You're just getting the bait down and you're letting the current do the work as far as.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the fish. Kind of size structure we catching right.
I would say the average steelhead is between 8 to 12 pounds.
Yeah.
12 pounds might be on a little more on the heavier side, but our average fish is about 8 pounds for steelhead. Brown trout, they've been on the smaller side this year. We have a phenomenal brown trout number. Last year and this year alone, it's been a record year. I mean, if you don't go out and catch 20, 30 brown trout, I mean, they're smaller ones. They're 2 to 3 pound range. Lake trout, our biggest lake trout we reported was 30 pounds. They just grow. They eat so much. You can get a lot of big fish around here.
Yeah.
That's what's nice about our fish. The Niagara bar is right there. We have the Lake Erie water coming in, it's keeping the water warm. It's just habitat for bait. It's habitat for fish. It's a beautiful scenery. Yeah.
So those fish, let's take a lake trout for example.
Yeah.
When is that fish coming into the river and when is it leaving?
Okay. So the leaving part's kind of a tough question because lake trout are more of a warmer water species. They're not as they don't get as lethargic, I should say. The lake trout will start moving in October following the kings. They're not laying their eggs. They're just eating up as much smelt as they can in the river, as much emerald shiners as they can. They're packing on the pounds. They're chasing the king eggs. Then I should say they leave the river. As I would go, I stopped catching with lake trout probably about March.
Okay.
And I had to target them out in the lake in March. I think a lot of fish run out to the lake. They run deep water too. They go out to the big levee, we call it, out in the bar. And they'll go to that 190 foot of water.
All right. Tell me about the kings. I mean, when people think kings, they think we're going to go out in the big water, we're going to troll kings.
Okay.
You're catching kings in a very different way in the river. Tell me about what that's like.
It's tricky nowadays. We have a great fishery of phenomenal numbers of kings, but it's just there's a lot of pressure with a lot of boats. We would do the same thing. You could really only target kings when they're spawning up in Devil's Hole. The water's higher, the water's faster in October. They don't lower the water levels now like they do in November. There's a lot of people, there's jet boats running up in the river. We would do the same thing, a 3-ounce swivel with about a 5 to 6 foot lead, heavier rods, bigger bait casters, a lot of braid line, 2 to 3 ounce sinker to get on the bottom, and I'm using skate with an egg loop on there.
Sure.
Number what's it, size 2 owners hook I put,
Okay.
2-aught I should say, and that's unreal.
Yeah.
You hook them fish, especially in that fast water.
Right.
You catch a 12-pound king or a 15-pound mature king, it takes a while to get that.
You know, it's interesting you say that because I don't really think of kings in the river. I mean,
Right.
I always think of them out on the bar, right? The
Yeah.
spring fishery and whatever. And it's like, until you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, of course they're going to be there in the fall. I mean, yeah.
Area, the spring fishing for kings is unreal. It's absolutely unreal. Our fall fishing is just as good. Them fish
Interesting.
always return to the river to spawn.
Yeah, of course,
Some
yeah.
are 2.5, some are 3.5, but most of the time after 3 years, we're running out to the river to spawn.
All right, interesting.
All right. Jim Lemon checking in. Jim's a frequent viewer of the show.
Okay.
He says Lower River has a good population of walleye too. Is that
Sure-
something you go after?
Yes, it is. The lower river walleye numbers are through the roof right now. You can actually go out and target your 12, 13 pound walleye right now, again, this is a perfect time for it. You get a lot of them fish that you can even have they have GPS trackers in them. They will go from the Bay of Quinte, which is on the eastern end of Lake Ontario up in Canada. They'll run up into the Niagara River and they will spawn there and go back and live the rest of their spring and summer up in the Bay of Quinte, and they'll come right back. How we fish for them, you can vertical jig with blade baits. You can use bucktail baits, but we just use a giant emerald shiner and we drag the bottom in sandy bottom loons. It's our best spot to get them.
Okay.
Yep.
We had Captain Frank Campbell on yesterday, and he's really known as, well, he's known for a lot of things,
Oh,
but
yeah.
one of them is bass fish, or being a bass fisherman, and he's like the smallmouth population is just through the roof in
Down
the
the
lower river as well.
Yes, it is. That really starts heating up around late April, beginning of May.
Okay.
It's just as good as Lake Erie. I mean, it's a little more trickier. There's definitely a different sport to it than going out in Lake Erie on a reef going after bass. It's a lot different. I'm not really big into it. It's just because that time of the year I'm out trolling on Lake Ontario,
Right.
where I am up in Lake Erie fishing for bass. I live 15 minutes from Lake Erie. I shouldn't even say 15 minutes. I live probably 10 minutes from Lake Erie, 5 minutes from the Upper Niagara, right down the street from me. I can walk up my house to see the Upper River.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question for you. Is, let's say I book a trip with you and we're gonna go fishing. With all this productive water surrounding you and all these different bites and all this different, how do you pick what you do in a day? I mean, you've got
Well,
world-class waters everywhere.
say you called me and you wanted to book a trip, so I would ask you, what do you want to target first?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to narrow it down to specific species you want to go after, we will go after it.
Yeah.
So, say if you call me now, it's going to be a lower river. If you call me in May, we've got a lot of options. We got Lake Ontario, you got Lake Erie, you got the Upper Niagara, and still the Lower Niagara. It also depends on wind and weather.
Mm-hmm.
If Lake Erie's howling, Lake Ontario 9 times out of 10 is flat. If the wind's perfect, if the wind's bad on Erie, which is the west wind on our end of the lake, Lake Ontario is fishable. Lake Ontario gets a heavy north wind, it's fishable on Lake Erie. So that's what's nice about our fishing region.
Very good. We got a question coming in on Facebook from Glenn. Glenn says, what size kings do you predict this spring on the bar?
Ooh, that's a good one. It hasn't been a harsh winter last year or this year. There's a lot of bait around. I think a lot of these kings they're gonna be packing on the pounds pretty big right now. I would have to say your average fish this year is gonna be between 12 and 15 pounds, which is pretty good. I mean, you are gonna get a couple occasional 20-pound kings in the spring. Yes.
Do you see that, with being heavy early on, the amount of bait fish out there? I mean, this summer, do you think you're going to see bigger than normal kings once we get to the summer? They get that feed bag
I think we're
filled
gonna
up?
I think we're gonna have a big class of 30-pounders this year. I do.
Okay. Well, I just talked to you a few minutes about where to choose someone if a client calls you. How about you? If you could only
Yeah.
fish one bite, and it's like you get to go fishing one day a year.
You get
I'm
to
going to
fun
torture
fish.
you. You get one day a year to go fishing. Where are you going to go and what are you going to do?
I'm going spring king fishing.
Okay.
100%. I'm going out there. I shouldn't even say spring kings. I'm going after. I would probably prefer to catch the cohosts.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I love catching the little cohosts in the spring. They taste so good. They're fun to target. They're like a school of piranhas.
They're psycho, yeah.
They are. They're like a school of piranhas. They're everywhere. I like going after them. I use the Dreamweaver. What are they? A little 6-inch orange flasher.
The baby spin doctor
little baby
ones.
spin
Yeah.
doctors, the orange ones. And I put a little white peanut fly in the back of them on a 4 or 5 color lead.
Mhm.
And just throw that behind an offshore board. You can't keep them things off. That's a riot. When you're sitting there looking down at your downrigger and you hear a rod ripping past your head, that's my favorite. That's probably my favorite. If you had to ask me, that's my favorite fish. Spring kings all day and cohosts.
All right. You talked a little bit about your boat earlier. How about electronics? What are you running for electronics in your boat, and why did you choose those?
I have 2 Humminbird Solex 12-inch on my screen, on my dash, because I run the Canon Optima riggers
Okay.
that link to my Fish Hawk and they link to my Humminbird.
Okay.
So if I have to get a situation where it's very rough out and I can't use my bow mount motor in my boat, I have to steer it by hand. So I have to watch the rods, see what that Fish Hawk's doing, and instead of doing that, I turn around and look at my graph. Everything's linked to my graph. I don't have to keep running the back of the boat to check so and so. Or if I'm on this rigger, I need to bring this rigger up against a fish or
You're standing at the helm controlling the boat in that situation where you're not leaving the helm and you got all your information in front of you at that point. Yeah, that's the whole idea with that system, right? Is to be able to really access the information anywhere in the boat.
Yes.
So what's your, you get out there, you told me about your coho setup. What does a spread look like for you when you're going out king fishing in the spring?
In the spring, I run mostly mag spoons in the spring.
Okay.
We do have a darker, cloudier type of green water in the spring. It's warmer, fish are a little more active. It's harder for them to see as well. So I run bright green spoons. They have cloudy days. I run black spoons with bright white eyes. I would run 2 riggers, 2 lead core, and 4 wire dipsies. And I don't put no flasher flies out or kings. Now for the coho, it's a little different. Like I told you, I'm putting the little 6-inch spin doctors out, but those are mostly on lead core. I'm just targeting kings. You came out with me and you said you want kings and you want to try to avoid the coho as much as possible, which cohos will eat the spoons.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Heavy spoon program,
Heavy
though.
spoon program. Heavy spoon. 6-8 rods out that are all spoons.
Okay.
And mostly, honestly, they're the green skirt. I use mag green skirts as well. I put little red eye stickers on the back of them. Change the hooks out, make them sharper. Every fish it hits, I check them, make sure they're not bent, make sure they're sharpened. But you really can't keep rods in the water long when you're spring kingfish. It's left and right.
Yeah.
It is phenomenal fishery.
All right. That's Ontario. We've talked about the river. We haven't really talked a whole lot about what you're doing on Lake Erie. If we decide we're going to go Lake Erie fishing, what's a day in the water with you on Lake Erie look like?
So I'm mainly a walleye fisherman when it comes to Lake Erie. I like to go out of Cattaraugus Creek, New York, which is down in Irving, Silver Creek area. And that starts to eat up as the big school walleye come from Ohio. They start heading towards our end of the lake, which I should say they're heading east towards us.
Yeah.
I go out there and I run a lead core program and I run a wire dipsy program. I would put out 6 lead core rods with stick baits all on them. I use olive thunder sticks and thunder sticks works. And then what else was I to say? I put the dipsies out there for walleye fishing. Lake Erie is phenomenal as well.
So you're fishing walleye usually a little later in the season?
Later in the season, yes. You can go out there in late May, beginning of June, but it's mostly nighttime fishing.
Okay.
Yeah, so I actually do nighttime charters for people.
Oh, cool.
It's all rod in hand. And we're fishing
That's neat.
10 to 15 foot of water.
So you're flatlining and neat. That'd be fun.
Rod,
Thunk.
Yep. All you're doing is you're sitting on the side of the boat.
Yeah.
You count to about 11 to 12 behind the boat, which is usually about 70, 80 feet. We're going about 1.5 miles per hour. You just let the lure just do its thing and fish hits you. Just yank forward and you're on.
The tug is the drug.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
We got a question coming in from
Yeah.
Trad. And I think this is probably more related to the salmon we were talking about earlier, but what's your preferred length of leaders for spoons on your wire rods?
What is preferred length of what
The
is it?
leaders?
On the wire rods?
Behind the divers, yeah.
Usually 2 arm lengths. So that's
Right.
7 to 9 feet, I believe it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Anything else for Richard?
I just, talking to everybody, I kind of want to go fishing.
I told
It's
you
kinda
guys, you guys got a plan.
I know that's the thing. I mean, we're so fortunate because, we talk to guys like yourself, and it's like we get all these invites to go fishing, and we need to like make good on all of these invites. I
Gotta
think.
start cashing some of these checks.
Yeah.
You guys got to come a day early. That's what
Right.
you
You're right.
got to come a day early. So, thanks
Cool,
for
man.
having me.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
You.
You
Yeah,
can
you
find
too.
out
Yeah.
more about Richard. You go to his website. It's realactioncharters.biz.
Thanks.
Captain Richard Brant.